Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the segment of Khoj Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation today is Gaudi Gwareri Mahalla Tija. Gur Seva Jug Chare Hoi, Pura Jankar Kamave Koi. Akhut Naam Dhan Harp Tot Na Hoi, Aithe Sada Sukh Dar Sobha Hoi. E man mere परम न कीजै, गुरमुख सेवा अमृत रस पीजै रहाओ। सतगुर सेवै से महापुरख संसारे, आप उदरे कुल सगल निस्तारे। हर का नाम रखै उर तारे, नामे रते पौजल उतरह पारे। सतगुर सेवह सदा मन दासा, हऊ मैं मारे कमल परगासा। अनहद वाजै निज घर वासा, नाम रते कर माहे उदासा। सतगुर सेवह तिनकी सच्ची बाणी, जुग जुग भगति आख बखाणी। अंदन जपै हर सारंग पाणी, नानक नाम रते नह केवल निर्वाणी। The Rahau Pankti reads, E man mere param na kijai, Gurmukh seva amrit ras pijai. My mind, don't open yourself to delusion. Param na kijai. Gurmukh Seva Amrit Rasa Pijai. By serving the Gur Enlightener, drink at the fount of life. And here we need to understand what that param is. Param literally means a delusion. And in Gurmat, the delusion is what it calls duja pai, or love of the other, which is the mistaken notion that ego consciousness, the world of the senses, is real. And then with that comes identification with the limitations of the senses. This, Gurmat tells us, is a delusional spell. Now, the word real, let's be clear, means permanent or stable. So this is not to suggest that Maya, or the world as we perceive it, doesn't exist. It does, but it is ephemeral. It is constantly changing, and for that reason it is unreal. It is not stable. It comes and it goes. It is the world of appearances. And what it does is it conceals the true character of spiritual reality. In other words, it hides or veils the Creator behind this appearance, this world of appearance. And so therefore, we are being asked to drink from the fount of life. Amrit Rasa Pijai. Amrit literally means immortal. And in Gurbani, it refers to Gurmat. It is the knowledge of the self, Atam Gyan. Ras literally means the essence or the sap of something, or the circulatory energy. So drinking the elixir of Amrit simply means spiritual transformation by absorbing the knowledge of the self. And this knowledge comes only through the principle of sabad, the word or logos. The word is the creator in creation. And for those of you who are interested in a fuller treatment of sabad, we recommend that you visit the glossary section in www.khojgurbani.com So it is into this wisdom that we have to tap. And the Guru tells us in the opening verse that the teachings of the Guru Enlightener, this principle of the Sabad, has been around forever, ever since there was creation. Gur Seva Jug Chare Hoi. Pura jan kar kamave koi. But it is the rare devotee who has actually tapped into this wisdom or lived a life in accordance with this wisdom. And this treasure of self-awareness is inexhaustible. Akhut naam tan, har tot na hoi. And it brings fulfillment to the mind. Ethe sada sukh, dar soba hoi. And within the heart, it illuminates it with its brilliance. Dar soba. Soba is brilliance. So Gur wisdom is eternal. It is always innate to us. But rarely does anyone tap into it. Those who do find fulfillment and are illumined. They're enlightened. And then the Guru says, here is what happens when you serve the Satguru. And we will see what serving means. Satguru Seva Se Mahapurkh Sansare. Exalted beings. They are exalted. Aap udre kul sagale nistare. They have found the way themselves and they show others the way. The crossing, nistare. Self-knowledge is their support. Har ka naam rakhe aur tare. And they are soaked in self-knowledge. And therefore they are ferried across the ocean of fear. So the idea is that the Satguru is the medium or the channel through which we understand and absorb Sabad, relate to it. Indeed, in Gurbani, one could say that they are virtually the same. The Satguru and the Sabad, the medium is the message. Those who understand are awakened from the delusion of attachment. Attachment to what? To the fleeting world of appearances, fleeting relationships, transitory pleasures. They don't get bogged down. This is not to say that you're not going to experience the joy of having a family, or that you're not going to experience the pleasures of the world, or for that matter, the pain of the world. It is simply the idea that you realize that the very nature of these things is transitory. And so you break the limitation of seeing yourself as identified with these things. And your mind then turns onto itself. It begins to recognize itself. And this is how the Guru describes it. Satguru Seva Sada Man Dasa. A feeling of service, a feeling of being a slave. If you recall, in the previous verse, it said, Satguru Seva Se Mahapurkh Sansare. Exalted beings. They come to be filled with humility. Satguru Seva Sada Manadasa. A feeling of devotion, of humility, of service. In fact, Guru Nanak refers to himself as a slave to the Almighty. Lalla Gulla, how lalle ka jaya. So this is the result of engaging with the Satguru or the wisdom. You overcome the ego and the heart blossoms like the lotus. How me mar kamal pragasa. Now we know that the kamal, the flower, is symbolic of spiritual transformation or spiritual bloom. And the idea is that the lotus actually blooms surrounded by dirt. So the point being that we live within the dirt of Maya, and yet we need to blossom. We need to live here, but not be attached. That really is the message, not get caught up. So awakened individuals are filled with a sense of service and devotion. That is the hallmark of an awakening. They view themselves as slaves or instruments of the divine. The idea that I am the creator and the doer vanishes from the mind. The idea that takes hold is that I am an instrument, that this awesome power is actually working through me. Imagine the excitement when you recognize this. So serving the Sadguru means to sacrifice one's ego, because that's where the word service comes from. It means to put aside your selfish priorities to accomplish tasks for the betterment of humanity. That you do your tasks without attachment to the outcome. That you have a larger vision of the world, not just a narrow, constricted, selfish vision. That is what the Guru is trying to inculcate in us. How may mar kamal pragasa, anhad vaje nij kar vasa, nij kar. Then the mind is settled in itself. It is no longer at war with itself. Name rate kar mahi udasa. Being of the world, being in the world, but not of it. Satgur Seva Tinki Sachi Bani. This is the conclusion. This is the effect, the net effect. First, serving the Guru exalts you. You are a Mahapurukh. You then work for the betterment of humanity. Satgur Seva Sadaman Dasa. You then have this feeling of being an instrument in the service of humanity. And in conclusion, Satgur Seva Tinki Sachi Bani. Now, you could translate to say that their speech is truthful, but actually it has a deeper connotation. Sachi Bani. Bani also means construction. So, individuals who are awakened construct what is real. In other words, they're engaged in doing, quote unquote, the right thing. And Jug Jug Bhakti Aak Vakhani. Jug Jug, forever, always, filled with devotion and love. They live constantly in intuitive awareness of the Har Self. Who is the provider? Sarangapani. And so, Guru Nanak says, service of the Guru brings self-knowledge and extinguishes the state of the ego. That is Nirbani. Nirbani literally means to extinguish oneself. Extinguishing one's ego, not actually physically extinguishing oneself. Because it is through that the highest devotion can happen. And that devotion is spontaneous, sahaj. It is not calculative. Here is an important distinction. Devotion must arise spontaneously. So when you are engaged in rituals and rites and mantras and so on, that is very calculative because it is the ego that is still involved. And so therefore those do not result in any benefit. That's the message. So work with the Satgur so that you can absorb self-knowledge. Absorbing self-knowledge simply means recognizing that you are infinite potential in a sense because you're connected. You are the infinite, living through a material experience and expected to actually work creatively. So that doesn't happen as long as the ego is laced with whatever you do. On that note, until the next time, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.